It's time for Supply Chain Now Radio, broadcasting live from the supply chain capital of the country, Atlanta, Georgia. Supply Chain Now Radio spotlights the best in all things supply chain. The people, the technologies, the best practices, and the critical issues of the day. And now, here are your hosts.
Hey, good morning. Scott Luton here with you once again, live on Supply Chain Now Radio. Welcome back to the show. We're just about to be wrapping up our coverage here. We've been covering the AIAG SCAC Supply Chain and Quality Conference in beautiful North Charleston, South Carolina. This conference has been dedicated to the world of automotive, and we really enjoyed interviewing many of the leading industry thought leaders that have been participating. Real quick, big thanks to our conference broadcast sponsor, the Effective Syndicate, for making our coverage possible. The Effective Syndicate helps companies win by optimizing process and developing winning cultures. You can learn more at theeffectivesyndicate.com. On a quick programming note, like all of our series on Supply Chain Now Radio, you can find our replays on a wide variety of channels: Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, YouTube, wherever else you find your podcasts. As always, we would love to have you subscribe so you don't miss anything. So let's welcome in my esteemed co-host here today, Mr. Greg White, a regular co-host here at Supply Chain Now Radio, a serial supply chain tech entrepreneur, and a trusted advisor. Greg, how you doing?
I'm doing very regular. Thank you, Scott. I'm great. Actually, this has been a great couple days.
Oh, this has been a wonderful.
We've been talking to some really interesting folks, some great topics.
Passionate folks. And we're going to continue with this episode here.
We're going to take Ashely to the wall. We're going to see what we can get out of somebody from the Department of Commerce.
Well, and we're going to introduce her in just a second, but they're busy. They're busy making things happen in this growing, healthy state.
We got to hurry. We got to get her home. She's been out of the office all week.
Ready to see my babies and my husband.
Yeah. So, Bo Groover, real quick, our other co-host, founder, president of the Effective Syndicate, co-host of our successful Leadership Matters series here on Supply Chain Now Radio. Bo, how you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing just right.
Fantastic. I've really enjoyed the last couple of days with you, and Alex is also on the team, and we're going to be chopping up a lot of content as we head home in the weeks to come. So with all that said, let's welcome in this episode's featured guest. We are really excited to have Ashely Teasdel, Director of Business Services with the South Carolina Department of Commerce. Ashely, how you doing?
Doing great.
Fantastic. Well, as you mentioned, you've been on the road all week. There's no shortage of activity taking place in this state, and of the numerous ingredients that go into that. Clearly, the state team's been busy making it happen, right?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Now we're going to talk more about the South Carolina Department of Commerce and your role and what you do, but tell us first. Tell us about yourself and your journey to your current role.
Absolutely. So I'm Ashely Teasdel, as you said. I'm the Director of Business Services for South Carolina Department of Commerce. A little bit of background about me. My journey started in the financial services industry in banking. Started out with BB&T, and that was, looking back on those years, was really the building blocks for where I am now. So starting out in your local branch, really helping customers more on the retail side, was able to and was blessed to go to the leadership development program that they have in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And that's where you really started learning more, not only about the retail side, but the commercial side, how to really help a client. What is it that businesses are looking for? And that was a 6-month program. Came back to Columbia and started managing my first branch. From there, that's when I started my love for small business. Understanding their needs, understanding what are those right probing questions to ask, and helping them on all areas of deposits, loans, investments, employee benefits, cash management, merchant services, all those things. And that's where a lot of that skill set and that love of finding out what are the gaps, what's keeping them up at night, how can we help you, how can we fill those interests with the right resources to be able to help them. So ended up being a small business advisor, which grew into a small business commercial loan officer.
Still at the bank?
Still at the bank.
Okay.
Was there for 9 years, and an opportunity with Department of Commerce came up. They were looking for a small business manager to manage more of the small business efforts on a statewide level. Talked to my husband, talked to my parents, prayed about it, and lo and behold, ended up getting that opportunity, and that started the journey in government, in economic development, which I really didn't know what that was.
That makes
yeah.
So
Join the rest of the world,
so from there, it's just grown from small business to now supporting all of the business services efforts. So I oversee 5 programs that support our small business and existing industry. I have program managers that manage the execution of these strategies. So overseeing that, we have 5 programs. One is small business, helping our small businesses start up and grow.
Can I
yes,
cut in real
absolutely,
quick?
sure.
So I don't know about y'all, but when I hear the passion you just shared and heard what you love to do, we need a lot more Ashleys in working in our government at all levels.
That's
I
right.
mean, what did you hear what she talked about? I love small business. I love being a resource.
I think what's really interesting is that you recognize that passion and you were able to leverage it up,
Absolutely.
right? From the bank to the state, right? I mean, I think that's really
More businesses can benefit.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah. That's a
Impact
great
more
growth
people.
path.
So now, let's talk about the 5 programs. The first one, as you were saying before I rudely interrupted,
No,
small
that's
business.
fine. Yeah, small business program that's there to support your startups and your 1, 2, 3 year small businesses that may be at the stage of I have an idea or they're trying to get more business. How can I connect? One thing that we realize with businesses across the state, they're really, really good at what they do. But they really struggle with understanding the ecosystem in the state. And I know I have this issue, but I don't know where to go to solve it. So we are their problem solvers. The second program is our existing industry program, where we support the existing manufacturers here in the state. At Department of Commerce, of course, we have our global development team that's made up of our project managers. They're recruiting industry here, but it is our job to help keep them here. And it's the same model. How can we keep you here? What is going on? What can we connect you to solve some of those issues? Third program, we have a recycling market development program, which helps our companies with their waste stream needs and understanding the recycling supply chain to where you may have waste or product that's just sitting there. How can we get that back into the supply chain, get that over to some type of recycler or a supplier that can make that into another end product? Very robust recycling market development team. We hear all the time across the U.S. how our team at Commerce is the model for what's going on to support recycling issues or opportunities going on in the state. We have a 4th program called Supplier Outreach, and our Supplier Outreach is there to support our existing supply chains, our small and mid-sized companies that are looking to do business with some of your larger, your Volvos, your BMWs, maybe your Boeing. So we will put on B2B to where we will have these companies meeting with your larger OEMs and tier 1s to talk about what are my capabilities? How can I solve some of the issues that you're having? I would like to be a supplier with you, and I do X, Y, and Z innovatively. This can be janitorial. This can be events management. This can be a company that makes a widget that goes on the end product. But we do a lot of connecting through our supplier outreach, and a lot of our OEMs and tier 1s lean on us for support, and they will reach out and say, hey, we're looking for X. Can you help us find a supplier? Or we're looking for a supplier that's a woman-owned or minority-owned. Can you help us find this? So we provide a lot of support on both ends. Lastly, the 5th program, which is evolving, but it's becoming something that we cannot ignore, is our emergency management program. A lot of people don't know that we are responsible for the ESF 24 function whenever the state has a natural disaster. So we're in charge of business response and recovery to help get our businesses back on their feet. because when we have a storm, it disrupts everything, from moving product to our ports to logistics to
Interstates.
the interstates. They're losing money.
Right.
They're getting flooded. They have damage. So how can we help support that and meet their needs? So as you can see, we have a lot going on in our division. Yes.
So your third program, you mentioned the recycling market. I think a lot of our folks that listen are familiar with some of the changes made with some of the overseas countries and what they're accepting, and that has had a serious ripple effect throughout supply chain and caused a new sense of urgency, it seems like, on how we can manage our waste, and we really have to figure out new ways. So is that a busy program?
It is a very busy program because we are having to make that shift to have our companies think about regional, more local suppliers, and we need to be preparing now on how to manage our own waste streams, because if we're not able to send it to Thailand and to here and to there, then we need to be able to manage that at home. So how do we do that? Through local partners, through regional partners, through other states. But that is a big piece of what they're doing.
And a big part of that, from what I understand and talking with some folks in the recycling industry, is educating producers and manufacturers on new ways of recycling things that maybe didn't exist just 6 months ago.
That's
or
right.
2 years ago, and making them aware of the folks that can take it and how that facilitates. Because of these changes overseas, there was a city up in the Northeast, and I was reading this one article about green supply chain, and without naming any names, they for years were sending their waste overseas, and of course that changed. So they began sending it to a domestic processor, and at the beginning of 2018, I want to say it was, let's just use some round numbers. They were getting paid $5 or $10 per ton of waste, right, by the processor. And then as they were renegotiating that contract into 2019, the rates were they were going to have to pay the taker $120 per ton. So not only had it shifted dramatically to where it's not going to be a revenue stream, but it was going to be a significant new financial burden on the business. So we're going to have to get more creative. But I think one of the things that requires is we interviewed Kyle with Volvo Cars USA yesterday afternoon, and they've got a big, hairy, audacious goal as it relates to recycled plastics, right? About 25% of all their plastics they're going to make recycled by just a few years from now. And that shit, I'm sure that puts a big burden on finding suppliers and probably in automotive, making sure it meets specs, all this stuff. That's some of the leadership, some of the ideas that it's going to take.
That's right, and that's what it's going to take to sustain us, to sustain the markets, to help support our companies to go more green. And the more we're able to make those shifts more domestically, then hopefully we'll have other companies starting up and popping up that's doing this to support that market, which is in turn creating more jobs, creating more opportunities. So it all plays hand in hand.
Absolutely. And that was, Malcolm just shot me a note, it was 25% of all plastics at Volvo Cars USA by 2025.
Yes.
So that,
I saw that on that slide yesterday.
Yes, 6 years around, just 6 years away. All right, so let's talk about your role. So obviously you're leading probably beyond, but the 5 core programs there, and overseeing those efforts. Where else do you spend your time?
Mostly, trying to come to events such as this. SCMA is a huge partner of ours.
And that's the South Carolina Manufacturing
Alliance. A great partner of ours, but it's really important to spend time at platforms such as this so we can keep up with what's going on from companies, so we can continue to hear about trends, what's happening, what are the concerns, so we can take that information back and continue to have those conversations internally to say, what can we do to support that? It's really important to get out and hear that message. Sitting in the office all the time, you stay in a bubble, but you have to get out and to really understand what are their needs and what are some things that we can implement internally within our programs to really help support that. Our existing industry program is just such a big piece of what we do. because existing industry touches everything. And one point I really wanted to make too is, with Commerce, our mission, we're the state's lead business agency. Our mission is economic development and improving the lives of our citizens through more opportunities. And we do this through the recruitment of new industry, but we also do it through supporting our existing industry and helping them stay here. How do we help them grow and be sustainable? So with our existing industry program, I would be remiss if I didn't add our partnership with South Carolina Manufacturer Extension Partnership. We have a very strong alliance with them to where we do joint visits, and we help companies with specific projects that they may have, and that can be around organizational issues. It can be systems, it can be workforce, it can be sustainability. But we're seeing a lot of great results from this partnership because, we see ourselves as the ultimate connector. And when they have this issue, they may need to be connected to a consultant that can help them with something on their supply chain, an internal system issue. We're very proud that last fiscal year, we had 240 joint visits with MEP, along with our existing industry managers that are strategically placed throughout the state. 190 completed projects through this partnership. Through the work, 2,269 jobs were created or retained, and the statewide impact was $614 million. So the work that we're doing out there is making a difference. It is helping companies continue to move forward, and really thinking about that connection from where I came from to now. It's so interesting how when I mentioned the building blocks, I'm not having that conversation about deposits and investments and treasury management and employee benefits. Now I'm having that conversation on different things businesses think about. They think about recycling. They're thinking about workforce. They're thinking about supply chain. They're thinking about how can I invest in new equipment to advance my company forward. And oh my gosh, now I have this new equipment. My people aren't trained to actually use this equipment.
Right.
So how can we, get them connected to maybe some income or work and training programs? So it's
the
all
ultimate
of that.
connector.
Absolutely,
The ultimate connector.
we are the yes.
So I want to go back. You mentioned the SCMEP,
Yes.
and some of our listeners may not be aware. There is an MEP in every state, right?
Yes.
And I'm not sure where the South Carolina one. In Georgia, it goes through Georgia Tech. And in Alabama, they've got a. We were there in Birmingham, and they've got a society that housed the MEP. But regardless, great resources, and I love how you put it, where you see your effort as a connector, whether it's programs you are leading and running, or other programs. What about when you come out here? And I also love how you put the you got to come out and hear the voice of the customer and see what's going on and connect with folks and get their feedback and take it back to the Department of Commerce. Talk about any key takeaways or what have been some of the conversations you've had here so far? So
I think for me, one of the biggest key takeaways is the whole cybersecurity realm. And I don't think a lot of our companies, truly understand how severe this is, and B, they may not be quite ready for what they need to do to make changes internally to be more compliant and to keep their intellectual property and patents, all of that protected. It was a very interesting session with the cybersecurity piece, and we've been keeping our eye on that because there are also some DoD changes that's coming down the pipeline. For our supply chain, which they're going to be requiring a new cybersecurity certification starting next summer. That's now going to be implemented into their RFPs. So, more of your OEM tier ones may be a little bit more prepared for that one. But when you start talking tier 2s, 3s, and 4s, your smaller businesses, they may not truly understand what it is that they need to do. Right. How do we start engaging with them now to start thinking about this? Because this new CMCC, which stands for Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification, is around the corner. So we need to be thinking about that. So staying ahead and understanding what's coming down the pipeline and what can we do to provide that outreach so you're aware, and then partnering with entities, experts to help them now do the assessment. Now, what can I put in place? So what type of security process do I need to put in place? And then now help them with implementation so they can get ready for market changes that's coming down the road. That's what's so important about platforms like this, going to conferences, going out and talking to companies, continuing to talk to our allies and our partners. That way we can help be that forward thinking for our companies here in the state.
Love it. Malcolm just shot me a quick note. The Alabama Technology Network is who was part on when we were in Birmingham broadcasting live there. That's the local state what houses the MEP there. Okay, so Bo.
Yeah. So
speaking of what's on radars,
I mean, you've got your finger on the pulse, and love hearing you talk about how the state is interacting with the small business. That's just fantastic. What are some of the trends that you're aware of, or watching, or looking out for, or maybe even worried about as you're looking at the landscape?
So, some of the trends that we're seeing. Last fiscal year, we did about 560 plus visits to companies across the state. And the top three, I say, areas of interest and trends that we are seeing is always centered around workforce, how to continue to be more competitive with the workforce, training opportunities, market development, how can we get more business? How can we connect to more business and help ourselves be a little bit more competitive? And then from there, trade is always a top issue. It's front and center. It cannot be ignored, but it is a concern. From imports to exports, which we do very well as a state with exports, and we have a very robust export trade department internally at Commerce. But those are the three areas that we're seeing. And of course, I already talked about cyber. That's a big deal.
A huge.
Really big deal.
We had a great speaker here this week, Charles Morrison, CEO NQC, that spoke around some of the cybersecurity challenges. And if you're a manufacturer, if you're in supply chain, regardless of what sector, and you don't have some folks figuring out the landscape that's going on in cybersecurity, do it today.
Yes.
Don't wait till Monday.
Yes.
All right. So 560 visits in 2019. Is that right?
Fiscal year 2018, 2019. Yes.
I thought I've done something by being, I've done, well, I keep a worksheet. I don't have it in front of me, but about 335 plant visits in my career. And I thought that was doing something. Y'all have knocked out over 500 in less than a full year. And you going back, you said 240 joint visits where you're taking the MEP out. So you got more resources, more brainstorming.
That's right.
That's really impressive. Okay, so how can our listeners tap into some of these things you're doing?
Right. So the best way to tap into us is www.sccommerce.com. And when you're on our site, click on at the top, Doing Business Here, and it will list out all of the programs that I just mentioned, as well as connect with us. And you will be directly connected to someone on the team. And we are looking forward to helping as much as we can.
I believe it.
Yeah,
I believe it. Love it.
Yeah.
So we've been speaking with Ashely Teasdel, Director of Business Services with the South Carolina Department of Commerce. Thanks for what you do.
Absolutely.
Thanks for being
Thank you for the opportunity.
You bet.
Yeah,
The ultimate
job.
connector. That you need a championship belt. That must come with a championship belt.
It ought to.
Y'all are doing it.
I need to mention that when I go back to the office.
Yeah.
You can hang it on your
Lots
wall.
of jewelry.
Right.
No, but kidding aside, I really appreciate what y'all do, and it's when we come back to South Carolina from the Atlanta area and tap in with what's going on here, no wonder so many things, so many good things are happening, and so
That
much
Team
business
South Carolina
expansion.
approach.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, Ashely, thanks so much.
Thank
Have a
you.
wonderful weekend. And now we're going to wrap up on just a couple upcoming events we've got coming up. Bo 920, September 20th. We've got a executive roundtable. What are y'all going to be talking about?
Yes. So myself and a Emory professor named Robert Kazanjian are going to be talking about the elements of a good strategy and the elements of world-class execution.
Fantastic. Hosted by our friends at Arnold Golden Gregory LLP in Atlanta. Gorgeous view.
That building's got a fantastic
25
view.
views up over the connector in Atlanta. Just shouts Atlanta. Looking forward to that event. If you need information or details, you can shoot us a note to connect@supplychainradio.com. And one other event to touch on, Greg, is the Georgia Manufacturing Summit on
October 9th, at the Cobb Galleria. So we're going to have about 1,000 attendees. Is it at 1,000 yet, Alex? 1,000 attendees representing about 10,000 Georgia manufacturers and the companies that do business with them. So it's going to be a great session. Bo and Scott both have panel sessions there. They're having a contest to see who's is better.
Oh no, it's no contest.
No, there's no contest because
Mine's
mine is
clearly
better because I'm doing a live broadcast and I'm going to have a couple of trade ministers from a couple countries that are near us.
But what's so cool about that is Ashely just
Not us,
mentioned
near
after 560 visits, that short list of things that are top front and center for business leaders, workforce, market development, and trade. So I'm really curious to see from kind of other perspectives, what some key takeaways are and insights.
Well, it's also interesting how much we talked about those issues in
Yes.
almost
That's the theme.
every single interview that we did at this show.
Yep.
Workforce, certainly. Trade, definitely impactful in a number of them. So,
Yeah.
Great point. And one other quick note about the Georgia Manufacturing Alliance and the Georgia Manufacturing Summit October 9th is Jason Moss, CEO of the GMA, has freed up 50 seats, free and clear to our veterans. No strings attached. We've talked about, we're passionate about serving that community. So if you've heard about any of our shows, we talk about the transition. Veterans have a challenging time transitioning into the private sector, as well as once they're there, developing that network, right? And events like this, events like we've been at the last couple of days, are great opportunities. So if you're a veteran listening and you're interested, you can go to GeorgiaManufacturingAlliance.com and you can use the code USAVET for one of the 50 seats if they're still available. So great job, Jason and GMA team. Okay, so Austin, Texas, November, Vegas in February. And then what's
Vegas,
coming up?
baby. Were you waiting for me to say that?
What
Vegas,
goes on there stays there. In March 2020,
in March,
which I bet
Modex.
there's going to be plenty of South Carolina business leaders at this event coming up then.
Yeah, it's an amazing display of materials handling equipment there. I mean, they basically set up factories, and warehouses right there in the facility. 35,000 of your closest friends. ModexShow.com.
Yep.
Right, March
Free to attend.
2020.
Okay. Well, what a great show today.
Can I say
And-
one more thing?
Yeah, please.
Atlanta Supply Chain Awards, also on Tuesday, March 10th, right?
Hosted by?
During Modex. Yeah,
That's right.
hosted by Modex.
Georgia
And brought to you
Congress.
by Supply Chain Now Radio.
Man, that was nice. Very nice. You've been working on that. No, kidding aside, there's so much going on. We love covering, just like what you've heard today from Ashely Teasdel, there's so many folks that are doing such critical work across end-to-end supply chain, and we take it as our mission to get that information out, get those insights out, get those resources out. So really have enjoyed this. To our listeners, be sure to check out other upcoming events, replays of our interviews, other resources at supplychainnowradio.com. You can find us again on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, YouTube, all the leading sites where podcasts can be found. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. On behalf of the entire Supply Chain Now Radio team, including Greg and Bo, this is Scott Luton wishing you a wonderful weekend ahead, and we'll see you next time on Supply Chain Now Radio. Thanks, everybody.